talk, I can give a little bit of inside knowledge on the new Black Mafia Family show.
Talk to us about that. So, again, you get it here first. Big Boss Filmworks, breaking news.
So,
because you've been all over both of those. I mean, tell me about.
I've done some consulting for the
Black
all
Mafia
of
the
show.
Crime study. I mean, you really researched obviously the White Boy Rick thing, like from beginning to end, and the BMF story.
Yeah, I would say that my three signatures in terms of things that I feel the most expertise on would be, especially when we're talking Detroit, White Boy Rick, Jimmy Hoffa, Black Mafia.
Okay. So let us have what's happening with BMF.
So I've done some consulting on the Black Mafia television show. I'm in contact with both Flenory brothers for the last 3 years or so. I've been writing about them for about 10 years, and I finally kind of caught their attention, and they reached out to me and said, "Yeah, we really like the stuff you write about us. It's more accurate than a lot of other people." And so I've been able to be getting stuff that fed to me directly from their camps now. But inside information, little nugget of breaking news. It looks like Eminem is going to be a part of the first season.
Wow! Where else can you get it? So you gotta know people. You gotta know people.
Snoop Dogg is a part of the first season of Black Mafia Family, but the Eminem character has something to do with White Boy Rick. So they're writing that into the story at some degree.
I know that timeline would be very.
Well, the Black Mafia television shows flipping back and forth between eras.
Okay,
so some of it's taking place in the 80s, some of it's taking place in the 90s, and some of it's taking place in the 2000s. And I'm not sure what the balance is going to be in the first season, but I know a lot of the first season is taking place in the 80s.
Wow.
With the teenage Flenory brothers. I don't think they were doing business with Rick at that point, but they might be taking some creative liberties. I mean, at that point in 1987, the Flenorys were...
They were hustling in 87?
They were hustling, but they were, street corner hustlers.
Okay.
And Rick was in 87 was moving kilos. So there really would be no reason for those guys to have met at that time.
Detroit's a small town,
right?
At the top, especially at the top. So,
but from again what I gather, I believe Eminem is playing the Matthew McConaughey role, and is playing the dad, the Richard Wersey Sr., who was also an underworld figure, and I believe that the script right now with Black Mafia Family is you meet Little Rick as like a 13 and 14-year-old in the first season, and then I believe in the second season he becomes more of a character. But in the first season you're seeing his dad, and I believe that the dad is selling guns to what was at that time the early stages of BMF. Now I don't think that was true, but in the film, in the television show, that's what they're...
So look forward to it. Look forward to that.
And Snoop Dogg, and from what I understand, Snoop Dogg's going to be in Detroit all summer, shooting his scenes.
But I think really the star of the show is going to be the main character, is
Demetrious'
son.
Yeah, it's Demetrious.
Let's give a shout out for him. I like to hear that.
A shout out to Little Meech and Big Meech.
Go ahead on, brother. Push on.
Big Meech's son, Little Meech, Demetrious Flenory Jr. is going to be playing Big Meech.
That's awesome.
Fitting. They were inspired by what's going on with The Sopranos right now. There's a big
prequel.
There's a big prequel coming out. It'll be in the fall, and James Gandolfini's son plays a young Tony Soprano. So I think that there's some crossover by some of the producers on both projects, and they brought that idea to BMF. And I know Big Meech was really pushing hard for Little Meech to be cast as in his role. And I know there was some debate about it, and now it's been official, and they've been filling the cast, and Cash Doll's going to be in it, which is exciting. She's the kind of first lady of Detroit rap right now. If people are fans of The Wire, the character that played Avon Barksdale, Wood Harris, who played Avon Barksdale, is going to be in it. He's going to be playing a character named Black Pat, who's based on a composite of Edric, Edie, and and Harold Mills. So Edric, E.D., I want to say Jones. I'm not positive on his last name, but he ran a group called the 50 Boys out of Southwest Detroit, which was where the Flenorys got their start. It might be Edric Harris or Edric Jones, but it's Edric, and they called him ED. And then Harold Mills was their first Kilo Connect. Right. So I think Fat Pat, which is being played by Wood Harris, who played Avon Barksdale. He was also in Remember the Titans. He played Julius Campbell. Two great movies. Or one great movie and one great television show.
Paid in Full. Played
AZ.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't forget that one. Yeah. So I'm excited about that, and they have a lot of great people that are involved in this project right now, and all the people from Power. The showrunner is a guy named Randy Huggins, who is a Detroiter.
He's a Detroiter, actually. So yeah. Small world. We know Randy.
Yeah, Randy. So Randy's
that's your man, Jimmy's man.
So I know Randy's been in contact quite a bit with Demetrious and Terry, consulting. So they're definitely getting the authenticity factor nailed down by doing frequent consultations with Demetrious and Terry. I will say on the White Boy Rick movie, conventional wisdom would have said that using Rick as your kind of the go-to historical guy to lean on because you're getting it from the horse's mouth, conventional wisdom would say that's true.
Right.
I think in Rick's case, because he's or had been locked up for so long and hadn't been free since he was 17, there was some lack of clarity, I think, in his own story.
In his own memory of the events, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think he shaded some things and left some things out, and I think in that case, using Rick as the person to get all the information from might not have been the best idea, because it ended up, I think, shading some things in the film that could have been done in other ways that would have made the film more interesting or better. And they felt like they were being loyal to Rick by listening to him and trying to please him, and I think in reality they undermined their own cause.
Did he get a good deal?
He got a
good deal. Did he get producer credits on that?
He didn't get production credits, but I don't want to talk specifics, but I'll say that I think that he was compensated nicely.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I mean, some people might not look at it as nicely. I mean, you got a $40 million film about you. Some people would look at it and be like, well, you're making a $40 million film about me. I should be taking 10 of it, 15 of it. Now, I know he didn't get paid like that.
No, he didn't.
Look at what happened to the box office. How did it do at the box office?
It did horrible at the box. It was the perfect storm of shit. Sometimes you have a movie that the critics love, but nobody goes and sees it. Sometimes you have a movie that everybody goes to see, but the critics hate it. And this was, nobody went and saw it, and the critics hated it. So you got a $40 million movie that made 20... DVD. So then I guess they're probably hoping that there's some back end they can get from streaming on demand, and maybe it could have a second life outside of the theaters. But it was a financial disaster. It was a $40 million movie at a time when no studios are making $40 million rated R movies anymore. You're either making $200 million superhero movies or movies for less than $10 million, or the independent route. The idea that adult rated R movies would be made for plus $25-30 million, those budgets just really don't exist anymore. So we were lucky, but it turned out to be a mistake because they didn't even make back half their money.
People don't think about it, and there's so many, you hit a good point, good stories out there. But we were pitching. We had a friend, Mike Ovitz. I know you know the name Mike Ovitz, right? So when we first started this thing. Shout out, big shout in California, Ben Horowitz. We knew each other from back in New York days. Anyway, so he's big in there and doing all this stuff out in Cali. He hooks us up with Mike Ovitz to kind of review the story. And American Gangster had just come out. So Ovitz tells us, and he tells me, you guys got a great story. I pitched your story around Hollywood. They just did a 1970s drug kingpin story. And he's like, I'm like, yeah, but that's a story about Frank Lucas in New York. He like, Courtney, let me explain something. Let me explain to you.
There can be a million superhero movies, but we can only have one every 10 years, one 1970s.
And that's amazing you say that, because that's what they told him to tell us. They said, you got a great story. We just did a black
Talk to us in 10 years.
In 10 years? I'm not joking.
You got another 10 years wait, because here come Nicky Bonds.
Times have changed a lot, though.
Yeah, that's with Will Smith. That's gonna be
here
on,
come Nicky.
it's gonna be on Netflix.
But that was that. But this is the thing, Eddie. Eddie, that was before there was Apple TV. That was before there was HBO Plus. That was before there was 52 different streaming networks. Back then, if you'd have told somebody there was going to be movies that never go to the theater 10 years ago, Hollywood would have looked at you like you're crazy. 5 years ago. But the reality is now, coming to America, big movies don't even make it. They don't even want to go to the theater.
They don't even want to go to the theater anymore.
So, the game has changed, which is good for...
Yeah, for people like us that are trying to
like us.
And there's never been a time where people are more starved for true crime content than they are right now. And I thought a couple years ago that was the case, and it's just kept growing. It hasn't stopped, and I don't think it's gonna stop because of what you said. There's all these platforms, and everyone's looking for content because everyone needs fresh content for these new platforms. And there's only going to be more new platforms being created and opening over the next couple of years. So I just think this is a great time for what we're trying to do, and I think that I'm excited when I hear about Will Smith signing on to do a Nicky Barnes movie. In fact, when we were having early conversations about White Boy Rick, I was someone that was vocal about my desire for Will Smith to play Johnny Curry. I wanted to see Will Smith.
That would have done it.
Well, I wanted to see Will Smith kind of stretch his acting legs. He kind of is really good at that one kind of
genre.
Yeah, playing the good guy and playing the guy you want to root for and playing the charismatic leading man. He's really good at. He hits that note really well. But I think he could be great as a bad guy. He kind of did it in Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But
and he played a con man in the movie.
What was that called? Trust, I think.
Trust, something like that. You familiar with that?
And then in his first movie.
What is that, Nicky Bonds?
6 Degrees of Separation.
Is that a Netflix project?
So I think it's a Netflix project, as well as the Supreme Team is a Netflix project with Jamie Foxx playing Supreme. That seems a little bit. Jamie Foxx, I don't know. Supreme was like in his 20s. What's going on? Jamie Foxx is already 50.
That's gonna be a stretch. Jamie Foxx looks young for his age.
Yeah.
And I guess with sunglasses and some things they can bring him. But Preem's top was the late 80s, right?
Yeah, Preem. Well, in the early 2000s, he was back out running with Murder Inc. But wasn't. He was out. He was killing people, but he wasn't dealing drugs.
See what I'm saying?
He was killing people over old beefs. Right. And then he went back in.
You choose what he take life for. He take life for not drugs.
But the part of when they're doing the Supreme story, they focus. Is the whole story?
And I just seen these announced in the last couple months, and just so people
50
know,
Cent's involved in that too, right?
Yeah, just so you know, and he's also doing one on Boy George, but they didn't announce.
I heard that.
Not Boy George, the Culture Club.
Boy George
was a Puerto Rican drug
Queens, I believe.
That was.
Well, he's still locked up though, ain't he?
Still locked up, yeah.
Yeah, he's still doing.
But he was a teen. I mean, he was kind of a little bit similar to White Boy Rick in the sense that he was doing these crazy drug dealing adventures, and he was 18, 19 years old. I think he got locked up when he was 20.
Yeah, he's been in jail a long time.
But he ran a pretty big empire for a couple of years. I believe that the script or the show is being called Obsession because that was the name of his heroin cut. It was called Obsession, which was like after a Calvin Klein
fragrance. Big in the 80s,
Yeah.
big throwback. All you 80 babies like me, Yeah, I had a lot of fun off wearing. Got a lot of compliments wearing Obsession. What we looking like? You good for a minute?
Yeah, I'm good.
Welcome into the Original Gangsters podcast, aka the OG, back in style, bringing you true crime, talk, content, interviews every week. I'm your host, Scott Bernstein, along with my co-host, partner in crime, the Dr. James Bucciolato.
Come stai? For those who understand Italiano.
Hey now. So we are now in our second episode where we're going to be without a guest, and we're going to do a pop culture potpourri. Me and Jimmy are going to chop up some breaking news and some news and notes related to some television and film projects that are either out in the marketplace right now or in development and production or just very highly anticipated, either about to be released, recently released, or will be released in the not so distant future. And we're going to open the show by breaking some fresh Hollywood gossip. Jimmy, you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what's going down.
So let's jump into this pop culture potpourri episode by talking about Black Mafia Family and the new, about to be new, Black Mafia Family television show on the Starz cable network, being produced by 50 Cent and all the people that were behind the show Power, which is the Starz network's signature show, a fictional tale of a New York drug dealer by the name of Ghost, and people call it the Black Sopranos. And now there is a follow-up to that is going to be based in reality and based in a story from our hometown in Detroit and the rise and fall of Black Mafia Family, a.k.a. BMF, the story of the Flenory brothers, Demetrious Big Meech Flenory and his younger brother, Terry Southwest T. Flenory, who rose from humble beginnings in a section of Detroit that was located right underneath the Ambassador Bridge, which is the bridge separating the United States and Canada. And from those humble beginnings in the late 1980s, they grew to become the biggest urban drug conglomerate in American history. They were brought down in 2005 in the epic Operation Motor City Mafia bust. And at the time of their arrest, they had outlets or franchises in 24 different states. And DEA agents and IRS agents confiscated something like $300 million from bank accounts that were tied to the Flenory brothers.
Yeah, and it's just some shameless self-promotion. If you want to hear more about the side of that from the law enforcement, we interviewed Frank Scartozzi in an earlier episode of OG. You can find it. And where he was part of the IRS angle of the investigation.
Yeah, he was tracking the money.
Treasury Department, right? IRS? Is that,
IRS.
Yeah.
IRS CI, which is the
criminal investigation.
The IRS, the part of the IRS that works very closely with DEA, FBI, and ATF.
Right, and we have an episode where we interviewed Meech's attorney, which hopefully will be that should be published soon. It's in the can. It's ready to go. So we've had some other BMF episodes.
Yeah.
So check the archives. We've talked about this a lot.
And they are not just legends in the American underworld. They've also become pop culture, hip-hop icons over the last 20 years. There was a court record, a filing that the U.S. government put into the record in the case against Demetrious Flenory and trying to keep him locked up, and talking about his influence in hip hop and his influence amongst the youth of America, that either Big Meech or the term BMF was shouted out in top 50 Billboard songs over 150 times over the last 5 years. So, 150 top rap songs or hip hop songs of the last 5 years have name checked Big Meech or BMF. And that's not counting the songs that didn't make the top 50 for that particular week or year.
When did that come out? That was
in the filings this past spring.
Oh, yeah,
the
so
spring
that's
of
pretty
2020,
recent.
when Big Meech was trying to get out on a COVID compassionate release, and the government was opposing it, and they were talking about the influence he has over the masses. Anyway, I'm burying the lead here. So the BMF show is in production. It started production last month. They are shooting in Atlanta and in Detroit. And I have, I got sources and spies and moles everywhere, all around the country. And I got tipped off actually today that there was recently a story arc for the first season of the BMF television show that features Eminem, and will be his first acting role since he starred in the breakout film, the smash hit 8 Mile back in 2002, and has kind of retired the acting chops. He showed him that his first time out of the shoot, and that movie became, it embedded in pop culture immediately. The soundtrack went through the roof. Everybody around the world knew what 8 Mile was. All of a sudden, they knew it was a dividing line between the city and the suburbs in Metro Detroit.
The first time I traveled to Germany, this was, I don't know, 20 years ago, something like that. I met some young ladies, and one of them had a Detroit shirt on, and so I assumed, oh, this is cool, meeting someone I can relate to in Germany. I think we were in Koblenz, I can't remember, because she had a Detroit shirt on, and I was introduced myself. Oh, cool that we can hang out. You guys are from Detroit. They weren't from Detroit. They'd never set foot in the United States. The only reason why they had a Detroit T-shirt was they liked the 8 Mile movie. So they were repping.
No,
it's just really interesting.
Post 2002, I didn't move back into the state. I was out of the state from 98 to I was actually out of the state from like 95, 96 to 2007, 2008. And post 2002, and wherever I was, I said I was from Detroit. People said 8 Mile. And I was like, no, 15 Mile, bro.
Yeah, and my students in Arizona, same thing. Their primary frame of reference when I told them I was from Detroit was the film 8 Mile.
Yeah. So I guess they've kept this under wraps, and this has not been reported in the Hollywood trades, while almost all of the other star-studded casting choices have been reported, but I was given the go-ahead as long as I don't name my source. But I talked to someone that was on set, and they were in Detroit last week, and I guess Marshall Mathers, a.k.a. Eminem, was in these scenes that were being shot, and that these scenes had something to do with White Boy Rick, who we spoke about on our last episode, the teenage drug-dealing phenom from back in the 1980s that dominated the press headlines here in Detroit in the late 80s, and the kind of the poster boy for the unfairly dubbed poster boy for the drug epidemic in Detroit, an era that was very dark in our city and just ravaged so much of the Motor City economy and the Motor City real estate, and it just was really a final death blow that was given to the city that was already reeling from the riots 20 years before that.
Well, don't forget, I'm going to be the political guy here. Don't forget deindustrialization.
Yeah.
The big three did a lot to.
Well, they started outsourcing
right. So
out of the country, and unfortunately and unfairly, Rick became kind of the poster boy for that era. But in reality, he was a creation of the U.S. government and was a bought and paid for mole for Uncle Sam, recruited out of 8th grade to infiltrate drug gangs, and did it all on the government payroll. And the movie, or the story, was turned into a film with Matthew McConaughey that I worked on, and it was also turned into a documentary that I executive produced that's now on Netflix, and it's been trending the last couple of weeks. So we chatted about that last week, and that was before I knew about this. But I do know, I was also the first one to report a while back that Eminem had been in talks with the Rick Wershey camp. White Boy Rick's real name is Rick Wershey. The Rick Wershey camp had been in talks with Eminem and his people back in the months and years after 8 Mile. From what I could understand, Eminem had intended to do a follow-up to 8 Mile that was going to be the White Boy Rick story, and it never happened. But there were contracts signed, and I believe there was some money exchanged, and Marshall was going to play Eminem. It never happened. But I heard that this story arc that he shot last week has a White Boy Rick angle. It doesn't make a lot of sense that a 50-year-old Eminem right now would be playing a teenage White Boy Rick.
Could he have even pulled that off
back then?
Right.
I don't know. He could have done it easier in 2003 than he could do in 2023.
Yeah, right. Fair point.
Yeah, so expect to see Eminem in the new BMF show, and hoping that this news is well received, not just here in Detroit, but around the country in Hollywood circles and people that are interested in the kind of convergence between music and movies and film and television, and this is big news.
Let me ask you something. If you have any insight, a lot of people were surprised that he did not engage in further acting and more movie projects. Any ideas why? I mean, to have like a huge hit like that and to show your acting chops with no acting experience, it's pretty remarkable. And a lot of people were expecting that, in fact, maybe he would just become an actor instead of transition to acting instead of music.
The way
that didn't happen.
The way that a lot of musicians and rappers have done.
Right, right.
Ice-T, Ice
Right.
Cube,
Yeah, right.
LL Cool J.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
They're
good
all
examples.
right now acting.
Right, for a long time now.
Right, Ice-T is on one of the Law and Order franchises. Ice Cube is in almost every movie that's released, and
What happened? Any
LL
insight
Cool
into
J is
what
on
that-
CSI. Okay, so here's what I know. There were 2 projects that the Eminem camp had set up for him in the years, or again, in the time that was post 8 Mile. One was this White Boy Rick project that never happened, and then another one was the Southpaw project that eventually went to Jake Gyllenhaal and was written and I believe directed by Kurt Sutter, the creator of Sons of Anarchy. He wanted to write a boxing story, and Eminem was working at the Kronk Gym with Manny Stewart back in the day, preparing for the role. Neither of those roles came to fruition. The White Boy Rick movie that was conceived back then never got off the ground, but was eventually made, with the Matthew McConaughey and the Sony people in 2018. And then Southpaw eventually got made with Jake Gyllenhaal and Rachel McAdams and Forrest Whitaker. But Eminem wasn't a part of it. I believe, his descent into drug abuse.
Oh, it's right about the same time. Yeah.
Took him kind of off the shelf when it came to really anything, even music-wise, for a couple years. The music he started to put out in the mid to late 2000s was not very good, in my opinion. His best work is the early stuff and the stuff he's done in the last 5-10 years. But the stuff he was putting out, I would say, from between 2003 and 2010 was, in my opinion, heavily influenced by his substances and just not. And I think it just affected every part of his life. And he didn't really have any desire to do anything other than kind of wallow.
So, yeah.
But again, that's just me playing armchair psychiatrist. I have no idea. I've read some stuff about that time in his life. He's rapped about it and talked about it, how he was in a really bad place, addicted to pills.
Well, he lives around here. He could come in and join us in studio. We'd love to talk to him and have him clarify.
It seems like from hearing people talk that are close to Eminem and close to his business dealings that he's the strongest he's been emotionally, physically, mentally in his whole life right now, and it's making great music and trying to get I think more diversified in his business dealings, and it seems like he's gotten past a lot of his demons.
So let me ask you about the timeline here. Does it make sense to have a storyline where the Flenory brothers interact with White Boy Rick?
See, I don't know. I don't.
Or is it going to be a flashback?
This is
or
kind
something?
of again stuff that's way above my pay grade. I don't know if it's a scene that they're shooting that's like a flash forward where they're talking about stuff that's happening modern day. If it's a scene where Rick was locked up and they were kind of shooting a scene where some of the Flenory guys or some of the BMF guys were with Rick while they were incarcerated, it doesn't seem like that it could be a scene that was taking place in the 80s.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I know that the show BMF is going to span, from the Flenorys being teenagers all the way into their arrest when they were in their 30s. This is just me gandering.
That might work. That chronology might work. When they were teenagers, they would have aren't they around the same age as
Yeah,
Rick?
but they were just. I mean, Rick was a superstar
It's a
at
different
that point,
yeah,
and
that's
they were just.
right. Yeah.
They were guppies.
No, that right, but they could imagine that.
Yeah, right.
that
Which
they
we
had-
know there is some reimagining going on
right.
in the storylines for
Yeah.
BMF. That I think it's from what I can gather, it's about 75% true, and then they're taking about 25%. Some creative license,
Sure.
creating some characters, changing some names.
Yeah, that's expected.
I think it's possible. One thing that I postulated in my head when I was thinking about this and my drive into the studio when I learned this information was maybe they have Eminem playing Rick Sr.
Oh, that would be interesting.
in the 1980s.
Yeah.
And then there's another character who's a teenager playing Rick Jr.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Rick Sr., for people that don't know,
Matthew
was Matthew
McConaughey.
McConaughey played Rick Sr. or Richard Sr. in the film, and was really Rick's entry point into his relationship with the government.
That's got to
because
be it.
He had been an illegal arms dealer on the streets of Detroit and had been working with federal and local law enforcement, trading information for cash, and eventually traded his son for.
Or they could go.
cash.
They could go totally like they did with Ice-T and the Law and Order, like make Eminem the cop, the FBI guy that
right.
just go against.
But I heard
You
it
know what I
has
mean?
to do with White Boy Rick, and Eminem shot these series of scenes, and that it will be a story arc in the first season of the show.
That would be sick if he plays the father, or it would be interesting to go against that and have him play like the FBI guy, one of the feds that flips Rick.
Right. Or it could be like I said, it could be a flash forward where they're looking into the future and Eminem is playing Rick today. I don't know.
Yeah.
But another two interesting casting announcements before we move on. Snoop Dogg has been cast as a regular character. He's going to play a pastor that kind of transitions from the Flenory brothers' spiritual advisor to their de facto consigliere for the crime family they were running. And it's interesting because there are a lot of, and I think the character is also a reformed ex-con. There are a lot of, at least in terms of Detroit, there's a lot of OGs, guys that were in the game in the 70s and 80s that have reinvented themselves as pastors. I know one of them was Sylvester Seal Murray, who was one of the leaders of Young Boys Incorporated, is a pastor in Southfield right now. And the Canton brothers, I know, were two guys that were big players around, I believe, Northwest Detroit.
What about the Judge? That was before YBA.
Judge,
that was like
Greg
70s.
Mathis was BK's and Errol Flynn's.
Right. That was more
Street Gangs.
It was more 70s.
Yeah,
Right,
early
yeah.
70s, late
Right.
60s.
Right.
And Jimmy Red Freeman, one of the more infamous street characters, street figures of all time, suspected in numerous murders, but never convicted. Has been free from prison for a couple years now, and is running a ministry.
Is he really?
Yeah, out of Southfield.
We didn't talk about that in that episode we did with
Yeah, well, I don't know if I knew it at that point.
with Sanderson.
Yeah. No, I don't think I knew it at that point.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, Che, you want to talk about pub that episode?
Yeah, so we had an episode with we interviewed he was an IRS
Jimmy
guy.
Sanderson, who was a IRS CI.
Yeah, right. And he was but it's just sort of coincidental that his brother
Was a bookie for the mob.
right, he ends up getting whacked. Him and what, two other
Yeah,
associates?
a triple homicide in
Right,
suburban
Sterling
Detroit
Heights.
in 1985, allegedly ordered by the Giacalone crew and carried out by the Murder Row crew, who was the Detroit mob's African-American wing.
Right. So yeah, we have an episode. That was one of our earlier
Yeah,
episodes.
yeah.
Sanderson wrote a book about investigating his brother's homicide. And so Red plays a role in that story,
Yes, allegedly.
allegedly.
So it's interesting that Snoop Dogg's going to take on that character, but I could totally picture it.
Yeah.
I could picture Snoop Dogg as kind of a shady, religious figure that has some charm to him, but it's kind of like sleazy charm, and he's he's speaking the word of God, but at the same time lining his pockets.
Yeah. Oh, so he's
that's the character that he's playing.
He's actually going to be kind of sketchy, not like
right.
Okay, interesting.
He's presented as like at first she's presented as the spiritual advisor for the family that the mother goes and prays to, and the dad takes the kids to church for, and then eventually kind of as the Flenory's empire begins to build and they become a big deal, he, according to what I've read, he starts to kind of ingratiate himself in all of their affairs, not just their religious affairs, but in their business affairs, and becomes somewhere where I think they're laundering money through, and is starting to advise them, because he's also an ex-con, goes from advising them in relation to their relationship with God, and then now starts to, later on in the story arc, starts advising them on their criminal activities. And then Wood Harris, who plays Avon Barksdale in the television show The Wire, one of the more iconic television crime lords of all time. Wood Harris has been cast as the Flenory's mentor. Who I believe they're going to be calling Black Pat, but in reality is based on Harold Mills, a.k.a. H-Town, who was the Flenory brothers' mentor in the drug game.
Yeah, I'm looking that up. I don't doesn't say this article I'm looking at what the exact character's name is.
For who? For Wood Harris?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Black Pat.
Oh, okay.
That's the name of the character.
Oh, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Sorry. Yep.
So that's the update for Black Mafia Family. We're all excited about it. Big Meech's son, Little Meech, is playing Big Meech. Rapper Cash Doll, who's the Cardi B of Detroit, the hottest female MC in the game right now, probably in the whole Midwest. Cash Doll is playing a big role. Going to play one of Big Meech's girlfriends. There's a character based on Steve Fishman, the superstar criminal defense attorney who walks on water with a lot of the urban underworld, and has a legend of getting people off of crazy charges, a la his Houdini act when he got Frank Usher off of the triple beheading.
Did he defend the brothers in real life?
He's been Terry's attorney for a long time.
Terry's attorney. Oh,
yeah. He got Terry. Steve Fishman got Terry Flenory his sentence reduction, which led to him getting the early release. So Meech is still looking at a 2031 out date. Terry, via Fishman, got that out date that was supposed to be 2031 knocked down to like 2024 or 25. So it was easier for them to let him out in 2020 than it was Meech. But I digress. So so we'll keep on updating you on the Black Mafia Family show when we get information about it. But the big news that we're breaking today is that Eminem is going to be a part of the ensemble cast and will play a role in the first season, and will be a part of a storyline connected to White Boy Rick. And he shot the scenes last week here in Detroit with 50 Cent and the whole crew. So looking forward to that. Let's transition into a little news on the film front. I would say that it is, we are going to be getting 2 new highly anticipated mob films, one fictional and one based on reality. The first one people know about, I'm guessing, if you're a Sopranos fan, we have the Saints of Newark, the Many Saints of Newark, which will be the Sopranos prequel that will be in theory, will be in theaters and on HBO Max this fall. It was supposed to be dropping in the spring, but they pushed it.
So that's done. Post-production, everything's done?
Everything's done.
Okay.
And it's a story, I believe, that spans 1968 to 1978. So you're going to get to meet all of the OG Sopranos when they were younger, and then you're going to meet a lot of people that were referenced in the show The Sopranos on HBO.
You know, it'll be interesting to see. Sorry to interrupt. It'll be interesting to see. There's going to be people like our age, older, a little bit younger, that are going to go see that because we're Sopranos fans. But it'll be interesting to see if younger people go see it and then go back and watch The Sopranos, because I know with my students, you bring up The Sopranos and they're like, oh yeah, my mom and dad watched that. Or like, yeah, I tried to watch it. It was boring.
You got to think, like, the last episode was 15 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It just seems like
it'd be like if when we were teenagers, you were talking about something that happened in the 70s.
Yeah, Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah.
but it doesn't. I don't know. It just seems like Sopranos should be more timeless than that. But I don't know.
I agree with you.
But
everyone has such a short attention span.
These days, yeah,
everything
that's true.
is so kind of immediate gratification. Nobody wants to go back and watch Sopranos or watch The Wire.
Yeah, and it's too bad, because the idea, like, if it's not someone getting whacked every scene, this idea of like, well, it's too boring. I can't commit to this. Like, give it a shot. If you're a young person listening to this, you don't know what you're missing if you've never watched The Sopranos or The Wire. Like, and that's part of the character development, and the story development. And also, sometimes things have to hit their groove. So, like, I've had a lot of people tell me, younger people, I watched the first 2 or 3 Sopranos episodes and I couldn't get into it. Like, in order to get to seasons 2, 3, 4, where it's like insanely good, you got to watch season 1, or you're not going to know what the fuck is going on. So I don't know. It aggravates me that more younger people aren't hip to the Sopranos.
But for